Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to our Rangers Town Hall season preview show here on MSG. I'm your host, John Giannone. Coming up, we're going to head inside the building behind me, the legendary Beacon Theater, as we sit down with the brain trust of the 2018-19 New York Rangers, head coach David Quinn, general manager Jeff Gorton, and team president Glen Sather, as we hear their thoughts on the upcoming season and the rebuild of the franchise. We'll also hear from Dave Maloney and Joe Micheletti. They will stop by to share their thoughts on what should be a very intriguing upcoming season for the Broadway Blueshirts. And without further ado, we'd like to bring up the three members of the organization who are responsible for where this Rangers franchise is going in 2018-19 and beyond. We welcome team president Glen Sather, general manager Jeff Gorton, and the new head coach of the Rangers, David Quinn. All right, get comfortable because we will as well. We'll start off with you, David. I understand that today, for the first time, you took a New York subway. How was that?
It was hot. Got a lot better when I actually got on the train, but I felt like a true New Yorker when I got on the train.
72 hours from now, you'll be standing behind the Rangers bench at Madison Square Garden. All of these people will be there, and you'll make your NHL head coaching debut with the New York Rangers. How much thought have you given to that moment, and what's that going to be like for you think?
Well, it's funny, you know, when training camp starts, you just get so enthralled in what you're doing, and, you know, and then we finally got our team picked a couple days ago, and we've been practicing, and, you know, the off day we had today really kind of was the first time I really started thinking about what was going to happen on Thursday night. There's a level of excitement that, you know, was radiating through the locker room, and, you know, guys, it's been a great camp. The effort's been outstanding. They've been incredibly coachable, and there's a really good feel, but as we've talked about, there's probably a really good feeling through every organization right now. We're all undefeated, and certainly, you know, but it has, you know, it's becoming more real today than it ever has, just because of where we're at.
Jeff and Glen, the excitement level you feel for David and the fact that he is going to now take the reins of the franchise as you guys now reshape the Rangers. Speak to the process that brought David to New York and ultimately why this gentleman was the person to lead this team.
A couple things we knew we wanted. We wanted somebody that could teach the game, somebody that was really interactive with his players in practice, and a great communicator, and somebody that spent time and really cared for his players and could grow with them. So, you know, originally when we talked to David, it was fairly brief because I just didn't think it was something that he was going to do. That he really loved his job, and the more we stayed with it, and I think it was over at the World Championships, and we were calling in the middle of the night, like 4 in the morning, and I was trying to beg him to take this job, and
he didn't beg. It wasn't begging. But it was Rangers. It was begging.
It was pretty obvious that he was a great fit for us, and you know, right now, 2-3 weeks in, you could see all those things we're looking for. He's trying to bring those and get the players on the ice to play the way he wants to and the way we want them to play. So far so good. He hasn't lost a game yet, so we're happy.
Glen, ultimately, what stood out to you about David?
The first opportunity I had to meet him, I had the feeling in about 2 minutes that he was the right guy for the job. It's kind of an instinct takes over. You can have a feeling about somebody, and I had the feeling about him right away. And I've watched every practice that we've had so far this year. I've told him that I've been impressed with the way the players are listening to him, how he's communicating with them, the way he's manipulating the practices in the direction that we all think they should go. And he's a teacher and a communicator, and I found that out right away in the beginning, so I'm happy about everything that's going on right now.
David, we asked both Jeff and Glen what set it apart for them to choose you. I'll ask it conversely. Since it was a job interview, what stood out to you about your two bosses now and about this organization that made you say, I'm going to leave what probably was a dream job for a bigger dream job?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've known Jeff for almost 30 years, so, you know, obviously knowing him as a person and as a hockey guy, and obviously I've known Chris Drury for almost the same amount of time, so right off the bat, you have that connection personally and professionally, so that certainly makes the whole situation attractive. And then you're talking about the New York Rangers, you know, and an original 6 team. It's New York City, and I had an incredible situation at BU. I've been fortunate enough over the previous few years to have other teams reach out, but it never got to this point because I just didn't want to leave BU. But, you know, I just thought to myself where the organization was at, the more, you know, Jeff, myself, Chris talked, everything just seemed to align. And, you know, he just alluded to the fact we meet every day, and it's easy with our relationships and the way we want to go about things in the same manner. It just, you know, the more we talked, the more that just seemed like the right thing to do. And, you know, there hasn't been a second that I've looked back to say, geez, did I do the right thing? I mean, this has been incredible, you know, 5-6 months, and I just can't wait to get started Thursday night.
Coming up on the Rangers Town Hall season preview.
We have a chance to, you know, do things that people may not think we're going to be capable of doing.
You'd be surprised how quickly you can win.
Robert Koch has been a season ticket holder now for 19 years. Robert, do you have a question?
Like many other people here, I'm fully on board with the rebuild, but I understand that it can take time. With that said, with the low expectations in the North American media about this current squad with the rebuild, how do you get the players to block out all that outside negativity while instilling a losing is not acceptable type of culture?
Well, we've talked a lot internally, and obviously we all know where people think we're going to finish. I think one of the things that might have happened last year, you don't have a great year every year during your career in the NHL. I think maybe we might have had a bunch of guys that didn't have great years all at the same time. But, you know, the guys that have come back, they're in great shape. We really feel good about our young core, and we don't need to, I know this is broadcasted live on Facebook and everything. So
correct.
I can't tell you how excited we all are, but there's a feel in our room that, you know, we have a chance to, you know, do things that people may not think we're going to be capable of doing.
I will say, yeah, for sure. And to back that up, the last interview I did in Philadelphia after the last preseason game with Kevin Hayes actually said flat out, he said, we know what's being said about us outside the room, and I'm telling you, I swear, that's not how it feels inside this room. Glenn, you were the architect of what will probably be the last great dynasty in the NHL, the Edmonton Oilers. Does it take as much time, do you think, now to rebuild a team, to make a team competitive again, as it took when you were at the helm of that team?
I don't think so. Of course, that's just a guess. I mean, I could tell you that by next year we'll challenge for the Stanley Cup, but really I don't think there's anybody in here who knows other than David. And if he's a good coach, he's going to put us in that direction real quick.
No pressure.
No, I'm only really kidding, honestly.
No pressure at all.
But it's a system that you have to slowly develop the players. You can't push them too hard. You have to give them a chance to grow and develop on their own pace. And they have to fall into the whole team concept, and they have to understand what the coaching staff's trying to do. They have to buy into it. And once you do that and it becomes a real close-knit family, you'd be surprised how quickly you can win.
You guys mentioned a couple of the players who might have had down years last year, certainly did for any number of reasons. One is Kevin Shattenkirk. You have a history with him. You guys have watched him during his career. You signed him to a contract to come here for a very specific reason. What do you expect from him this year, starting with you, David?
Well, I expect him to be the player he's always been in this league. You know, last year certainly wasn't the year that he expected to have or anybody in this room expected him to have, but there were reasons for it. You know, he had the injury. He tried to play through it. Obviously, he had the surgery middle of the season, missed the second half of the season. He's in a much better place right now physically. He's in a great place mentally. It may take a little bit of time. I think he's gotten better and better as the preseason's gone on. But again, we're not asking him to do something he hasn't already done in this league. And I've said that to 3 or 4 of our guys. You know, we're not asking someone who's played in this league who's never scored 40 goals to score 40 goals. We're asking them to do what they've already done, do the things they've already done that has made them successful in this league, and he's no different. And he's had some really good years in the National Hockey League. We want him to get back to that, and I fully expect him to.
And another guy is Brendan Smith, a guy who struggled last season, spent some time down in Hartford. He has made the squad. He'll be in the lineup on Thursday. First for you, David, Was it imperative on you to wipe the slate clean and maybe not even get into great detail about what happened with him last year?
Yeah, I met with him before. I've known Brendan since he was 15. I unsuccessfully tried to recruit him to go to BU. And sometimes you just connect with someone, and I coached against him in the American League for 3 years, and when I got the job, we talked, and I said, listen, we're not even going to acknowledge last year even happened. It was a year that he's going to forget. We're going to pick up, and I want to pick up where you left off in the playoffs against Montreal, the reason why we traded for you. And, I've thought he was a really good player for a long time, not only at the college level, but in the American League, and he played well in the National Hockey League. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. We're not looking for him to do something he hasn't already done in this league. And to me, he's been better than I envisioned him being in training camp.
In Brendan's case, he wasn't in great shape last year. And we sent him down to the minors, and he came back, and he's in terrific shape. He worked hard. I mean, this guy, we had a team gathering the other night just as a team-building exercise with the wives and girlfriends and the players. And I hadn't seen him other than when he went to the minors last year and watching him on the ice at practice, but I hadn't been up close to him. I hardly recognized the guy. I mean, he is fit right now, like you can't believe, and he looks terrific. And if I'd have run into him on the street, I might not have recognized him.
If we can get Shaddy and Smitty to be the players they've been in this league, it's like picking up 2 free agents. Those are 2 bona fide NHL defensemen. And, I'm really excited for Brendan because I think he's put himself in a great position and he's in a great place mentally.
Coming up on the Rangers Town Hall season preview.
You were the man, Glenn. But my question for today...
Are you a plant?
Yeah. I'll keep talking about me. I like it.
All 3 of you guys have watched and know what Adam McQuaid brings on the ice. I get the suspicion this might be a player that a lot of Ranger fans, and I've heard it already, and it might be that 10-foot area right in front of Henrik Lundqvist where he makes his biggest impact, at least among the fan base. Speak to that, guys, about why that was so important to bring Adam here.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear the cheers, you kind of understand what we're all talking about. This is a player he's been in the league a long time, and he's established himself as a hard-nosed player that will defend the crease, that'll go to the hard areas of the ice and make people pay a price. In addition, he's won a Stanley Cup, which is important too, right? So we're trying to bring young kids along, and we're trying to bring young kids along and teach them the right way. And this guy, he's a really impressive person, and I think that you guys are going to like him a lot.
I mean, I've watched Adam play for the 10 years he's been in the league, and he certainly is capable of doing that. He understands his role on the team. He understands he's got to play first, and if something happens, he's the kind of guy that can step in and settle things down. So,
Here on the right.
Hi, I'm Lou Batista. I'm Section 211. I've been a season ticket holder for a long time.
How long?
40 years.
Beautiful.
My 40th one.
That's awesome.
And I say that because I remember number 6 on the ice running around enforcing the rules. You were the man, Glenn. If anybody's got to see some old plays, Glenn was outstanding out there. I remember the night you fought Mark Tardif up in Montreal. Remember that night? Okay. But my question for today...
Are you a plant?
No. He was good. He was really good. He's really good when he was on the ice. Number 6.
that's right.
Let me get my question for tonight, all right?
I'll keep talking about me. I like it.
Maybe you can move me down?
I fixed the sound up here. It's better.
Okay.
You keep this up, you'll be on the bench for crying out loud.
Okay. One of our strong points, as we've been saying, and we know for years, is our goalie. A veteran who wants to play. How do you keep him fresh? How do you not overwork him? How do you intend to rest him when he wants to play so he's ready when we make the playoffs this year?
Well, there's a lot that goes,
Nice.
Well, there's a lot that goes into those decisions, just like with any goalie. Forget about where Hank's age is. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's in world-class shape. He's an incredible competitor. It's a position you can play probably later than you can with than the other 2 positions, forward and defense. and he keeps playing well, he's going to keep playing. And we certainly will consider the rest factor to it. Also, we think we've got a really good goalie with him. So there's a lot that goes into those decisions. So, you know, to me, there's no question he can carry a #1 workload regardless of his age. And, you know, it's going to be game by game for sure.
On the left.
Hi, welcome to New York, Coach Quinn.
Thank you.
I know you weren't here last year, but for me, and I think for a lot of the people here, one of the most disturbing games last year occurred against the Nashville Predators. And I'd just like to hear your philosophy and if we would expect to see our team getting concussed twice in 2 minutes this year and having minimal response.
You watch the preseason games, correct?
Shots fired.
So it'll be different. Good enough.
A great example of a little says a lot. Coming up on the Rangers Town Hall season preview, Dave Maloney and Joe Micheletti will break down the Rangers. Players to watch, storylines to explore when we come back.
Welcome back to the Rangers Town Hall season preview. I'm Joe Micheletti along with Dave Maloney. And Dave, we've really had an interesting couple of weeks here with the new coaching staff, some young players, some veterans coming back. It's been a very positive camp up to this point. What in particular has caught your eye?
Well, I think, the standard is certainly set with the new coach. And now David Quinn is not a young guy by any stretch of the imagination at 51, but he has dealt with the millennial generation, right? So you can see the communication skills that he's acquired over the time, and it comes to the simple basics of hockey. Right, quick to the puck, battle one-on-one. And Joe, I really got the impression that you go from the veterans down to the 18-year-olds. They either felt they had to earn a spot on the hockey club, or they felt that, you know what, I deserve to be on this team because it doesn't matter that I'm 18. So to me, Joe, it's been a wonderfully refreshing camp. Now, where it goes, well, you know what, Thursday night we're going to find out.
Well, we've heard a lot, talked about a lot since last summer. When they made a deal with Arizona, and Derek Stepan went that way to start rebuilding this farm system and getting some kids and getting some fresh legs in the system, and we've seen a lot of that, haven't we? In this early part. And in fact, there's been a few surprises of players that have made the team.
Well, I think the first surprise, right, is Brett Howden. Of course, Howden was acquired in the trade with Tampa with J.T. Miller and Ryan McDonough heading south. And the thing that impresses me about Howden, first of all, he's not 18, he's 20. And you know what, it's only 2 years, but it is a difference. Yeah. He's had some world-class pedigree playing in the Canadian World Junior Championships, and being partial to being Canadian, Joe, he is Canadian. That being said, what's been impressive has just been his savvy. You know what, the kid's quick enough to get to a point, but he doesn't seem to get rattled. So it's been, when you think going in that Elias Anderson was probably the guy that was going to be one of the younger guys, credit Howden for making the club. He's had a good camp and all that stuff, you know.
Well, and another kid that we need to talk about for sure is Philip Hedl. Now, he's 19 years of age, but made the team out of training camp a year ago, and then found out once the regular season started that the play is a little bit different. But Hedl looks like a totally different player. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's more confident than he was a year ago, and some of the things that we've seen out of him is really been interesting. So we go from youth to maybe some of the veterans on this team, and Dave, you know, you and I have talked, and the coach has talked, and Mika Zibanejad has mentioned it as well, about how good he feels, both mentally and physically. That's the best he's felt throughout his career, and he's just 25 years of age, but they're counting on him this season.
They certainly are, Joe, and there's reasons. I think what we saw last season when he came, wasn't in the greatest shape, got hurt, but by the time he got himself healthy down the last stretch, the last 6 weeks, I think there we saw this guy can be a dominant #1 center iceman. He's come, hasn't lost a lot of weight. The weight's been moved around a little bit, and I know both of us have talked to him, and he's got that mature attitude now where I think he expects. And you know what, Joe, winning a world championship with Sweden, who knows what that had on his mind. But another guy, right, you go back a year, a lot of talk about the defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk. He's a little different look this camp also, right?
Yeah. And one other thing that we can't end this without talking about him. He's 36 years old. He's been the Rangers goaltender and the face of the Rangers franchise for a long, long time. He has spent a lot of time with Benoit Allaire recently, going back years and looking at previous notes and video of himself to prepare for this year. What are your thoughts on Henrik going in?
Well, listen, every conversation about a team in the National Hockey League starts and a lot of time ends with the goaltending. And we've certainly been privy to elite goaltending for 13 years from this guy. Now he may have to adjust how he approaches what he sees, how he reacts to what he sees. It's a different look, but a more supportive system. I think Henrik Lundqvist is going to surprise a lot of people. He won't surprise us because we've seen him for 13 years. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. The most important guy is the goaltender, and Hank has certainly proved to be a pretty good player.
Yeah,
right?
you mentioned surprise. A lot of the veteran players on this team are saying we're going to surprise people because we're not getting much credit for having what we think is a pretty good team. It all starts Thursday night. One of the Stanley Cup favorites, the Nashville Predators, are in town, and it's going to be on MSG. Thanks for being with us. See you then.